There is a significant amount of news to work through here at Blue Jays Focus today, and it came together in a way that nobody anticipated. A surprise signing has been made official, there are injury updates that demand attention, and the Blue Jays have moved to 4-3 on the season following what was, by any honest assessment, one of the more heartbreaking losses of this young season. The emotions from that game are still raw, but there is too much happening around this organization to sit still, so let us get into everything. The headline news, which broke approximately 15 minutes after the final out of today's game, is that the Toronto Blue Jays have signed Patrick Corbin to a one-year, $1 million contract. He has been optioned to AAA Dunedin to begin his tenure with the organization, though that assignment should not be interpreted as a signal that he is far from the big league roster. Everything about the structure of this deal and the context surrounding it suggests that Corbin will be in Toronto sooner rather than later, and we will get into exactly why momentarily. Earlier today, before the game concluded, Ben Nicholson-Smith had already reported that the Blue Jays were seriously engaged in negotiations to sign a starting pitcher. The names being floated in speculation included Lucas Giolito and others, but when the deal was finalized, it was Corbin who came out on top. The reaction from a portion of the fan base was skeptical, and that skepticism is understandable on the surface. Corbin has been the subject of considerable criticism over the past several years, largely stemming from a historically difficult stretch following a large contract that did not produce the expected returns. But this signing deserves a more nuanced and fair-minded evaluation than the reflexive reaction it has received, and that is exactly what we are going to provide. Start with the baseline facts. Last season, Patrick Corbin posted a 4.41 ERA across 155 innings pitched. That is not an elite performance by any reasonable standard, but it is also not the catastrophic, roster-damaging number that his detractors have become accustomed to citing. 155 innings is a meaningful workload. For a pitcher who was available in free agency at this stage of the offseason, those are the numbers of a depth option who can actually contribute. The broader context is that the Toronto Blue Jays are not signing Patrick Corbin to anchor their rotation. They are signing him to provide length, eat innings, and give the organization a legitimate alternative to running their bullpen into the ground during a period when the injury situation has become genuinely unmanageable. And that injury situation is worth articulating clearly because the volume of what this team has lost since spring training began is staggering. Jose Berrios has dealt with issues. Trey Yesevich has been unavailable. Cody Ponce is injured. Alejandro Kirk took a foul ball off the thumb during today's game and was forced to exit. Shane Bieber is working his way back on a one-year deal. Jimmy Garcia is out. Anthony Santander has been dealing with his own situation. The injury bug has not just visited this organization, it has taken up residence. Running a sustainable, competitive rotation under those circumstances without adding external depth would be operationally irresponsible, and the fact that Ross Atkins moved quickly to address the need is something that deserves acknowledgement rather than criticism. The financial structure of this deal also matters. $1 million is a negligible commitment for a major league franchise. If Corbin comes up and provides 4 or 5 quality starts that keep the team in games while the injured players work their way back, the return on investment is exceptional. If he struggles and needs to be replaced, the cost of that outcome is essentially zero. This is the definition of a low-risk, potentially meaningful move, and those are the kinds of transactions that front offices need to execute well during injury-depleted stretches of a season. There is also a roster construction dimension worth noting. Corbin is a left-handed starter, and with the exception of Eric Lauer, the Toronto rotation has been operating without a left-handed presence. Adding a second lefty to the staff creates legitimate platoon flexibility and gives opposing offenses a different look than they have been seeing from the Blue Jays rotation in recent weeks. That is not a trivial consideration, particularly as the schedule begins to escalate in difficulty. The reports indicate that Corbin has been preparing extensively in anticipation of signing with a club. He has already surpassed 80 pitches in his build-up work, and may require only a start or two in Dunedin before he is ready to contribute at the major league level. The organization does not appear to view this as a long developmental process. They view it as a short on-ramp before deploying him in the rotation proper. Given that Eric Lauer is currently dealing with an illness and is not available for tomorrow's game, and given that a bullpen game is being constructed for tomorrow with Mason Fluitt likely drawing the starting assignment, the need for a legitimate starter is immediate and Corbin's arrival addresses it directly. When you map out the current rotation picture, the depth that Corbin provides becomes even more apparent. Dylan Cease is your anchor and has been everything the organization hoped for when they acquired him. Kevin Gausman remains a reliable and durable presence, even if today's outing was not his cleanest work. He gutted through it, kept the team in the game, and preserved the bullpen by eating innings when the situation demanded it, which is exactly what a veteran starter is supposed to do. Max Scherzer has been on a strong early run, and the hope is that he can sustain it. Lauer, when healthy, gives you a left-handed option in the 3 to 4 slot. And now Corbin adds a fifth piece that provides the depth necessary to stop the overuse pattern that has been developing in the bullpen. Speaking of the bullpen, the criticism directed at Jeff Hoffman following today's loss is worth addressing directly and definitively. It is not warranted. Hoffman has looked electric through the early portion of this season. His stuff has been sharp, his command has been competitive, and by the evidence available on the field, he is not the reason the Blue Jays lost today's game. The loss is attributable to a collective offensive failure, not to any individual bullpen performance, and pointing fingers at Hoffman obscures that reality. He gave the team what it needed in his outing. The offensive situation is where the honest and uncomfortable conversation needs to happen. The Blue Jays lineup has been ice cold, and the numbers reflect it in stark terms. Looking across the roster, the OPS figures for a significant number of hitters are sitting in ranges that are simply not sustainable for a team with playoff aspirations. Dalton Vasquez has been cold. Ernie Clement has been one of the more consistent contributors, which speaks to his approach rather than his ceiling. Andre Giménez has been outstanding, and we will come back to that in a moment. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has not been producing at the level this team requires from him. Jesus Sanchez has made hard contact on several occasions without the results to show for it, which is the kind of bad luck that tends to even out but does not help in the short term. George Springer has been quiet. The pitching staff is not the reason this team is losing games right now. The starting rotation has been adequate to functional across most outings. The bullpen, while being used heavily, has generally kept the team in games. The offense has been the primary obstacle, and until the bats collectively heat up, wins are going to be difficult to accumulate regardless of how well the pitching performs. This matters in a broader context that every Blue Jays fan should internalize. The history of this franchise includes painful lessons about the margin between making and missing the postseason. The 2021 season, where the Blue Jays missed out by a single game in the wild card race, is the most vivid example. Every game that slips away against an inferior opponent, every series against a bad team that gets split rather than swept, is a game that cannot be recovered. The Rockies series loss, the opening game defeat against the White Sox, these are games that should have gone in the Blue Jays' favor, and the fact that they did not places added urgency on the games that remain. The White Sox series represents an immediate opportunity to rectify that. Chicago is one of the worst teams in baseball, and sweeping this series is not an unreasonable expectation for a club with Toronto's talent level when operating at full capacity. Dylan Cease takes the mound today against Grant Taylor, and that is a favorable matchup. Getting this series right, banking the wins, and building momentum before the schedule becomes genuinely difficult is the priority, because the schedule does become genuinely difficult in short order. After the White Sox, the Los Angeles Dodgers come to Toronto, and that series carries significant implications both competitively and in terms of national visibility. Dave Roberts has confirmed that Shohei Ohtani's next pitching outing is expected to come in the final game of that series at Rogers Center, which means there is a real possibility of watching Ohtani face Max Scherzer in what would be one of the most compelling individual pitching matchups of the young season. After the Dodgers, the Twins and the Brewers follow, both legitimate opponents that require preparation and execution. The window to build a comfortable cushion is now against the White Sox before the gauntlet arrives. On the injury front, the update on Alejandro Kirk deserves careful attention. John Schneider indicated after the game that Kirk told him directly on the field that he needed to come out, and Schneider's response was to get him examined immediately given how important Kirk is to this club. X-rays on the thumb are being done, and the hope is that the results come back clean. The tone from the dugout was cautious but not panicked, which is at least somewhat encouraging. However, this organization cannot afford another significant injury to a player of Kirk's importance, and the possibility that he could miss time introduces real uncertainty behind the plate. If Kirk is unavailable for any stretch of time, Brandon Vasquez becomes the next man up at catcher, joining Heineman in managing the workload behind the dish. That is a manageable situation in the short term, but it is not ideal heading into a stretch of games against quality opponents. The better news on the injury front is that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Berríos and Yesavage are both expected to be ready within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Garcia's return is anticipated around that same general time frame. Bieber will take somewhat longer, perhaps a month or two, depending on how his progression goes. But when he is ready, the organizational depth picture changes dramatically. A healthy rotation that includes Cease, Gausman, Scherzer, Berríos, Bieber, and Yesavage, with Corbin and Lauer providing depth, is a formidable group. Getting there requires surviving the current period intact, which is precisely what this Corbin signing is designed to help accomplish. Ross Atkins has acted with urgency here, and that urgency is appropriate given the circumstances. The Patrick Corbin signing is not glamorous. It is not the kind of move that generates excitement or earns headlines in a positive sense, but it is the kind of operationally sound, low-risk depth addition that well-run organizations make when the situation demands it. This team will be fine. The injuries are temporary, the offense will wake up, and the reinforcements are coming. But in the meantime, Corbin gives the Blue Jays one more arm to lean on, and right now, that matters. This has been Blue Jays Focus. Drop your thoughts on the Corbin signing in the comments below, and we will have more updates for you tomorrow morning.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.